Throughout history, certain individuals have appeared with objects or knowledge that seem impossible for their time period. Out-of-place artifacts, anachronistic technology, people with currency decades out of circulation, photographs showing modern devices in historical footage. While most have conventional explanations, some cases remain unexplained. Physical evidence that challenges our understanding of linear time, objects that shouldn't exist when they were found. These are 10 documented cases where alleged time travelers left physical evidence behind, creating mysteries that continue to puzzle investigators. Case number 1. Rudolph Fentz, the man from 1876. In June 1950, a man was struck and killed by a taxi in Times Square, New York City. Police identified him as Rudolph Fentz based on identification in his pockets. But everything about Fentz seemed wrong. He wore clothing from the 1870s, including a frock coat and high-button shoes. His pockets contained 1870s currency that had been out of circulation for decades. He carried business cards with an address that no longer existed. Most disturbing, he appeared completely disoriented, as if he'd never seen automobiles or electric lights. Police investigated the address on his business cards. The building had been demolished years earlier. They searched records for Rudolph Fentz and found a missing person report from 1876. A man named Rudolph Fentz had disappeared without a trace that year. His family reported he'd gone for a walk and never returned. The physical description matched the man killed in 1950, but that would make him 74 years old when he appeared unchanged from his disappearance. Further investigation revealed Fentz's widow had died in 1939. His son Rudolph Fentz Jr. had lived until 1945. Police found records confirming the family had filed missing person reports in the 1870s that were never resolved. The original Rudolph Fentz vanished in 1876, and a man matching his description appeared suddenly in 1950 wearing 1870s clothing and carrying period currency. The case became famous in time travel discussions. How could a man disappear in 1876 and appear unchanged in 1950? The clothing and currency were genuine, not reproductions. The missing person reports were documented. Witnesses said Fentz appeared confused and terrified by automobiles as if he'd never seen them. He ran into traffic and was struck before police could question him. Later research suggested the story may have originated from a science fiction short story published in 1951. The author claimed he invented the tale, but some researchers argue the story was based on actual police reports. Official New York police records from June 1950 are incomplete. Whether Rudolph Fentz was a real person who somehow traveled through time or an urban legend inspired by fiction remains debated. The physical evidence that would prove the case authentic has never been definitively located. No photographs of Fentz exist. The original police report has not been found in archives. The currency and identification he allegedly carried have never been examined by experts. Without verifiable physical evidence, the case remains one of the most famous alleged time travel incidents that may be entirely fictional. Yet the details are specific enough and the documentation fragmentary enough that some researchers believe a real incident inspired the story, even if embellished details obscured the truth. Case number 2, the cell phone in 1928 Charlie Chaplin film. In 2010, filmmaker George Clark discovered something impossible in the bonus features of a 1928 Charlie Chaplin film called The Circus. The footage shows the premiere of the film at Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood. In the background, a woman walks past holding something to her ear and apparently talking. The object resembles a modern cell phone. She appears to be in conversation, moving her mouth as if speaking to someone. This is 1928, decades before cell phones were invented. Clark posted the footage on YouTube, where it went viral. Millions viewed the clip, trying to explain what the woman was holding. Skeptics immediately offered alternative explanations. The most common theory was she was using an early hearing aid. Hearing aids existed in the 1920s, though they were bulky and required external battery packs. A handheld hearing aid resembling the object in the film was possible, though the woman's apparent conversation remained unexplained. Detailed analysis of the footage revealed several peculiarities. The woman appears to be smiling and laughing, suggesting a pleasant conversation. She moves the device slightly as if adjusting it near her ear. Her mouth movements correspond to speech patterns. But who could she be talking to? Cell phone networks didn't exist. Radio transmission was limited. No wireless communication technology in 1928 could facilitate a private conversation through a handheld device. Some researchers proposed the woman was simply testing a hearing aid or talking to herself. Eccentric behavior would explain the appearance of conversation without requiring impossible technology. Others suggested the footage was edited or manipulated, though frame-by-frame analysis shows no evidence of tampering. The film is from original 1928 stock, not a modern reproduction. The time traveler theory suggests the woman was from the future accidentally captured on film during a visit to the past. If she had a modern cell phone, it would be non-functional in 1928 without cellular infrastructure, but perhaps she was communicating with future technology through methods we don't understand. Or perhaps she was simply holding the device from habit, forgetting it wouldn't work in the past. Alternative theories include the woman holding a portable radio, which did exist in primitive forms in the late 1920s. She could have been listening to a broadcast rather than conversing, or she might have been holding a compact containing a mirror and powder, talking to a companion while checking her appearance. These prosaic explanations fit the evidence better than time travel. The footage has been analyzed by video experts and historians. No definitive conclusion has been reached. The object remains unidentified. The woman's identity is unknown despite extensive research. Without being able to examine the actual object or interview the person, the case remains an intriguing anomaly. Either a time traveler accidentally appeared in historical footage, or a 1920s woman engaged in behavior that coincidentally resembles modern cell phone use. The physical evidence exists in the film itself, but what it depicts continues to generate debate nearly a century after the footage was captured. Case number 3, the Swiss watch and 400-year-old tomb. In 2008, archaeologists excavating a 400-year-old tomb in Shaanxi County, China, made an impossible discovery. Inside a sealed tomb that had been undisturbed since the Ming dynasty, they found a small ring watch. The watch was clearly modern, made of metal, with the time frozen at 10:06. The tomb had been sealed for centuries. How did a modern watch get inside? The discovery was reported by Chinese media and archaeological teams. The watch resembled a Swiss ring watch, a style not invented until the 20th century. The tomb was officially dated to around 1600 based on artifacts and inscriptions. The seal showed no signs of tampering, yet there inside was an object that shouldn't exist for another 300 years. Researchers examined the watch in tomb conditions. The watch showed corrosion and age but appeared to be of relatively modern manufacture. The tomb seal was intact, suggesting no one had entered since the original burial. The archaeological team documented the discovery with photographs before removing the watch for analysis. The find generated immediate controversy in archaeological circles. Skeptics proposed several explanations. The most likely is that the tomb had been opened previously and resealed. Grave robbers in earlier centuries might have disturbed the tomb. A modern watch could have been dropped accidentally during a more recent intrusion. The seal might have been repaired so expertly that archaeologists didn't notice. This explanation requires assuming previous disturbance that left no trace except the watch. Another theory suggests the watch was planted as a hoax. Someone on the archaeological team, or a local, might have placed it there to create a mystery. Chinese officials investigated the team but found no evidence of fraud. The researchers insisted the watch was found exactly as reported inside an apparently sealed tomb. The time traveler explanation proposes someone from the future visited the Ming dynasty and accidentally lost their watch. It was subsequently buried with a person who found it, perhaps as a precious or mysterious object. This requires accepting that time travel exists and that a future person was careless enough to lose anachronistic technology in the past. The watch itself was examined, but results were never published in peer-reviewed journals. The object apparently disappeared from official records. Attempts to locate the watch for further study have been unsuccessful. Chinese authorities have not released detailed analysis. Without access to the watch and complete archaeological documentation, the case cannot be definitively resolved. The incident highlights challenges in investigating alleged anachronistic artifacts. Without transparent documentation, independent verification, and published analysis, extraordinary claims remain unproven. The Swiss watch in a Ming dynasty tomb is either evidence of time travel, a hoax, or the result of previous tomb disturbance. The physical evidence exists in photographs, but the actual object remains unavailable for examination, leaving the mystery unsolved. Case number 4. John Titor and the IBM 5100. In November 2000, John Titor appeared on internet forums claiming to be a time traveler from 2036. He posted detailed descriptions of the future and his mission. Titor claimed he was sent back to 1975 to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer needed to debug legacy systems in the future. He stopped in 2000 to visit family and warn about coming events. Most remarkably, Titor provided specific technical information about the IBM 5100 that was not publicly known. Titor claimed the IBM 5100 had a hidden feature allowing it to read and debug legacy code from mainframe systems. This capability was important because future systems would need to interface with old infrastructure. IBM engineer Bob Dubke later confirmed that the 5100 did indeed have this undocumented feature. It could emulate older IBM systems, which was kept secret for competitive reasons. How did Titor know about this hidden capability in 2000 when it wasn't public knowledge? Titor posted photographs allegedly showing his time machine. The images depicted a device installed in a car with complex machinery. He provided technical manuals and diagrams explaining how the temporal displacement system worked using rotating singularities. Physicists analyzed the schematics, noting they were consistent with certain theoretical models, though impossible with current technology. The level of technical detail suggested either genuine advanced knowledge or an elaborate hoax. Titor made specific predictions about future events. He described a Second American Civil War starting around 2005. He predicted CERN would discover miniature black holes. He described World War III occurring around 2015. Most of these predictions failed to occur. However, he did correctly predict increasing political polarization and domestic unrest in America, trends that were not obvious in 2000. In March 2001, Titor posted his final message and disappeared. His identity was never confirmed. Researchers investigated extensively, trying to determine who created the John Titor persona. Some believe it was a collaborative fiction project. Others suspect a computer scientist with inside knowledge of IBM systems. The IBM 5100 detail remains the strongest evidence suggesting insider technical knowledge. Physical evidence from the Titor case includes the posted photographs and documents. Analysis of the images shows they could have been created with 2000-era technology. The time machine components appear to be actual equipment photographed and assembled. Whether they function as described cannot be verified. The technical documents are detailed and internally consistent, but prove nothing about time travel. The John Titor case demonstrates how someone with specialized knowledge can create a convincing time traveler persona. The IBM 5100 detail is genuinely impressive, but could have been learned through connections at IBM. The predictions that failed undermine credibility. Yet the case remains popular because Titor provided physical evidence in the form of documents and images and demonstrated knowledge that seemed impossible at the time. Whether John Titor was a time traveler, an IBM insider engaging in elaborate fiction, or a collaborative hoax remains unknown. The physical evidence exists but doesn't prove the extraordinary claim. Case number 5, the Moberly-Jourdain time slip. In August 1901, Charlotte Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain visited the Palace of Versailles near Paris. While walking the grounds, they became disoriented and encountered people in 18th century clothing. They described seeing a woman sketching who resembled Marie Antoinette. They saw buildings and landscape features that didn't exist in 1901. The experience lasted about 30 minutes before they returned to normal reality. When they tried to retrace their steps days later, the landscape had changed and the buildings they'd seen were gone. Moberly and Jourdain were both Oxford academics and regarded as reliable witnesses. They independently wrote detailed accounts of the experience before comparing notes. Their descriptions matched. They saw the same people, buildings, and landscape features. Both felt an oppressive atmosphere during the experience. Neither could explain what happened, but both insisted it was not imagination or hallucination. They researched Versailles history extensively. They discovered that many details they observed matched Versailles as it appeared in 1789. Buildings they described had existed in the 18th century, but were demolished before 1900. The landscape matched historical maps from the period. The clothing worn by people they encountered matched late 18th century French fashion precisely. How did they know these accurate historical details if they hadn't experienced them? The women published their account in 1911 under the title An Adventure. The book became controversial. Skeptics proposed they encountered a historical costume party and misinterpreted what they saw. But research found no events at Versailles that day matching their description. Others suggested they experienced a shared hallucination or confabulated memories after the fact. The remarkable agreement between their independent accounts argues against this. Some researchers have proposed the women experience a time slip, a rare phenomenon where past and present temporarily overlap. The physical evidence supporting this includes their detailed knowledge of 18th century Versailles that they had no way to know beforehand. They describe specific architectural features later confirmed in historical records, but not visible in 1901. Critics note that the women had access to historical texts and may have unconsciously incorporated details from their research into false memories. The human mind can create convincing false memories, particularly when two people discuss an experience repeatedly. The lack of photographs or other people witnessing the event makes verification impossible. The Moberly-Jourdain incident remains one of the most famous time slip cases. The physical evidence is their detailed written accounts, which contain historically accurate information. Whether this proves they experienced actual time travel or demonstrates how educated people can create convincing false memories, incorporating historical knowledge remains debated. The case highlights the difficulty of investigating temporal anomalies that leave only testimonial evidence without physical artifacts. The women insisted until their deaths that they experienced something extraordinary at Versailles that August day in 1901. Case number 6. The Pillar of Ashoka, Rust-Proof Iron. The Iron Pillar of Delhi stands in the Qutb complex in India. Cast around 400 CE during the Gupta Empire, the pillar is made of 98% pure wrought iron and stands over 23 feet tall. What makes it extraordinary is that after 1,600 years, it shows virtually no rust despite Delhi's humid climate. Modern metallurgists cannot fully explain how ancient Indians created rust-resistant iron using technology that shouldn't have existed until the 20th century. Analysis of the pillar reveals it contains high amounts of phosphorus, which creates a protective coating preventing rust. The iron was manufactured using techniques requiring precise temperature control and metalworking knowledge far beyond what historians believe existed in the 5th century. The pillar weighs over 6 tons and was forged from a single piece of iron, a feat that would challenge modern foundries. The inscriptions on the pillar honor King Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Historical records confirm the pillar was moved to Delhi in the 11th century from its original location. But how it was initially created remains mysterious. The level of iron purity and the anti-corrosion properties suggest metallurgical knowledge that wasn't documented in Indian texts from that period. Some researchers propose that ancient Indians possessed advanced metallurgy that was lost over centuries. This knowledge may have been recorded in texts that didn't survive. The pillar proves the capability existed even if we don't understand the methods. Attempts to recreate the pillar using period-appropriate technology have failed. Modern metallurgists can make rust-resistant iron, but not using 5th century techniques. Alternative theories suggest the pillar represents technology transfer from an advanced civilization or time travelers. The precision of composition and the scale of the casting suggest knowledge beyond the era's documented capabilities. If someone from the future wanted to leave evidence of advanced technology, a permanent rust-proof monument would be ideal. Recent scientific analysis proposed that the dry Delhi climate and the pillar's continuous exposure to sunlight contribute to preservation. The protective coating is a type of misaonite formed from iron, hydrogen, and oxygen. This natural process combined with high-purity iron explains the lack of rust using only chemistry, not requiring impossible technology. However, questions remain about how 5th century metalworkers achieved 98% iron purity and created such a massive single casting. The techniques required should not have existed. The Pillar of Ashoka stands as physical evidence of either lost ancient knowledge or anachronistic technology. Its existence proves advanced metallurgy in 500 CE India. Whether this represents human innovation, lost technology, or something more mysterious remains debated. The pillar itself is the evidence, an impossible object that has survived 16 centuries, challenging assumptions about ancient technological capabilities. Case number 7, the Antikythera mechanism, ancient computer. In 1901, sponge divers discovered a shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera. Among the artifacts was a corroded bronze mechanism that would revolutionize understanding of ancient technology. The Antikythera mechanism dates to approximately 100 BCE and is the world's oldest known analog computer. It calculated astronomical positions decades in advance using complex gear systems that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. The mechanism contains at least 30 bronze gears in a wooden frame now deteriorated. X-ray analysis revealed incredible sophistication. The device predicted solar and lunar eclipses, tracked the Olympic Games cycle, and calculated planetary positions. It used differential gearing, not reinvented until the 16th century. The precision of gear tooth cutting and the complexity of the gear train suggest manufacturing capabilities historians didn't believe existed in ancient Greece. The device was clearly not unique. Inscriptions reference a manual suggesting multiple units were built. Ancient texts mention similar instruments, but historians dismiss these as exaggeration until the Antikythera mechanism proved such technology existed. How did ancient Greeks develop this level of mechanical sophistication? Why did the knowledge disappear for over a millennium? Researchers have built modern reconstructions of the mechanism, proving it functions as an astronomical calculator. The engineering is remarkable. Gears mesh with precision tolerances. The differential allows complex calculations. The device represents technological achievement not matched until the development of astronomical clocks in medieval Europe 1400 years later. Some theorists propose the Antikythera mechanism represents technology transfer from time travelers or advanced civilizations. The leap from simple gears to this complex computer seems impossibly large. How could one civilization achieve this sophistication, then lose the knowledge completely? If the mechanism was typical of Greek engineering, why don't we find similar devices in other shipwrecks or sites? Mainstream archaeology argues the mechanism represents the peak of Hellenistic engineering. Ancient texts describe brilliant inventors like Archimedes and Hero of Alexandria, who created remarkable devices. Most ancient technology was lost when the Roman Empire fell and the Library of Alexandria burned. The mechanism is rare but not impossible within ancient capabilities. The physical evidence is the corroded mechanism itself now preserved in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Its complexity is undeniable. Whether it represents the peak of ancient human innovation or something more mysterious depends on interpretation. The mechanism proves that ancient people achieved technological sophistication far beyond previous estimates. It stands as physical evidence that history may conceal lost ages of advancement. The device shouldn't exist according to previous understanding of ancient technology, yet it does, forcing historians to revise assumptions about the ancient world's capabilities. Case number 8. The Nazca Lines, Aerial View Mystery. The Nazca Lines in Peru are massive geoglyphs created by removing reddish pebbles to reveal lighter ground beneath. They depict animals, geometric shapes, and lines stretching for miles. Created between 400 and 650 CE, the lines are only fully appreciable from the air. They were unknown to modern people until aircraft began flying over the region in the 1920s. How did ancient Nazca people create artworks designed to be viewed from an altitude they supposedly couldn't reach? The lines cover over 200 square miles. Some geometric shapes are so large they're invisible from ground level. The animal figures, including a hummingbird, monkey, and spider, are proportionally accurate when seen from above, but distorted from the ground. The precision suggests the creators could view their work from altitude during construction. How did they achieve aerial perspective without flight? Researchers have demonstrated that the Nazca could have created the lines using simple surveying techniques. Stakes and ropes allow geometric precision from ground level. Small-scale models could be expanded using mathematical ratios. These methods explain how the lines were made physically, but not why they were designed for aerial viewing when the Nazca supposedly had no way to view them from the air. Some theorists propose the Nazca had primitive hot air balloons. Textile remnants and burn patterns suggest they understood buoyancy principles. A hot air balloon could provide the altitude needed to view the lines. However, no definitive evidence of Nazca flight technology exists. The balloon theory remains speculative, though not impossible. Alternative theories suggest the lines were created for gods or spirits who could view them from the sky. They may have served ritual purposes, with the aerial perspective being symbolic rather than practical. The Nazca might not have cared whether humans could see the complete designs, only that they existed for divine observation. The time traveler theory proposes that aerial vehicles visited ancient Peru. The Nazca created the lines to be seen by these flying visitors. If time travelers appeared in the past flying advanced craft, the Nazca might logically create ground messages visible from altitude. The lines could be communication attempts or territorial markers. The physical evidence is the lines themselves, which have survived over 1,000 years in Peru's dry climate. They prove the Nazca could create massive artworks with precision. Whether they had the capability or desire to view them from altitude, or whether they designed them for others who could fly, remains unknown. The Nazca lines represent either remarkable dedication to creating art they couldn't fully appreciate, or evidence of ancient contact with aerial technology. The mystery endures because the lines exist as permanent physical evidence of ancient achievement that seems to require capabilities the Nazca supposedly lacked. Case number 9. The Baghdad Battery, Ancient Electricity. In 1936, archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig discovered clay jars near Baghdad dating to approximately 200 BCE. The jars contained copper cylinders and iron rods suspended in acidic solution. Koenig recognized the construction resembled a galvanic cell capable of producing electricity. If ancient Parthians created batteries, this represents electrical technology over 2,000 years before the invention of the modern battery in 1800. Multiple jars were found suggesting they were common items, not unique curiosities. The construction is consistent with battery design. When researchers filled replica jars with acidic solutions like vinegar, they produced approximately 1 volt of electricity. The jars could have been connected in series to increase voltage. This basic electrical knowledge shouldn't have existed in the ancient world. The purpose of these batteries is unknown. One theory suggests they were used for electroplating gold onto jewelry. Microscopic analysis of some Parthian artifacts shows gold plating that could have been achieved through electrolysis using battery power. This would explain why the jars were relatively common. Electroplating was a practical application that would require multiple batteries. Skeptics argue the jars were simply storage vessels, not batteries. The presence of copper and iron might be coincidental. Ancient people wouldn't have understood electricity, so even if the jars produced current, they wouldn't know how to use it. Without evidence of electrical applications like lighting or electroplating, the battery theory remains speculative. However, experiments demonstrate the jars do produce electricity when filled with acidic liquids. Whether this function was intentional or accidental is debatable. If the Parthians discovered electricity accidentally while storing liquids, would they have noticed the effect and found uses for it? The answer depends on assumptions about ancient scientific knowledge. Some researchers propose the batteries represent technology transfer from advanced civilizations or time travelers. Electrical knowledge appearing 2 millennia early suggests outside influence. If someone from the future wanted to introduce electricity gradually leaving simple battery designs would be a logical approach. The batteries could produce current without revealing complex theory. The physical evidence includes several jars now housed in the National Museum of Iraq. Some were looted during the 2003 war, making examination difficult. The surviving jars confirm the construction, though their purpose remains uncertain. Whether they were intentional batteries, accidental discoveries, or simple storage vessels that coincidentally produce current cannot be definitively proven. The Baghdad battery case demonstrates how archaeological finds can be interpreted multiple ways. The jars exist as physical evidence. They produce electricity when filled with acid. Whether ancient Parthians understood and exploited this capability, or whether the electrical function was irrelevant to the jar's intended use, remains unknown. The batteries stand as potential evidence of ancient electrical knowledge, or a remarkable coincidence that modern people interpret through contemporary technological understanding. Case number 10. Andrew Carlssin, Stock Market Time Traveler. In March 2003, the Weekly World News reported that FBI agents arrested Andrew Carlssin for SEC violations after making 126 high-risk stock trades that were all profitable. Carlssin supposedly turned an $800 investment into $350 million in 2 weeks. When interrogated, Carlssin allegedly claimed he was a time traveler from 200 years in the future who knew which stocks would rise. The story was reported as fact by Weekly World News and picked up by other outlets. Carlssin allegedly offered to reveal historical information, including Osama bin Laden's location, and the cure for AIDS in exchange for release. He posted bail provided by an unknown benefactor and then disappeared. Federal agents supposedly found no records of Carlssin existing before 2002, suggesting he appeared from nowhere. The story was almost entirely fabricated. Weekly World News was a satirical tabloid known for fictional stories presented as news. No Andrew Carlssin was ever arrested by the FBI. No SEC investigation exists. The story was entertainment, not journalism. However, the tale became an internet legend, with many people believing it was true. The story's popularity reveals how willing people are to believe time travel stories when physical evidence is claimed. The SEC violations and stock trading records would be physical evidence if they existed. The narrative included specific details like dates, amounts, and quotes, making it seem credible. The Weekly World News format resembled legitimate newspapers, tricking readers unfamiliar with the publication. Despite being debunked, the Andrew Carlssin story continues circulating. Some conspiracy theorists claim the debunking is itself a cover-up to hide real-time travel evidence. They argue that government agencies would naturally deny such cases to prevent panic. This circular logic makes the fictional story impossible to completely dispel. The case illustrates the importance of verifying sources when investigating extraordinary claims. No physical evidence supports the Carlssin story because it never happened. Yet the story persists, demonstrating how modern myths are created and spread through internet repetition. People want to believe in time travel and will sometimes accept stories without verification when they confirm existing beliefs. The Andrew Carlssin case serves as a cautionary tale. Not every claimed instance of physical evidence from time travelers is genuine. Some are deliberate fiction that takes on a life of its own through retelling. Critical thinking and source verification are essential when evaluating extraordinary claims. The physical evidence must actually exist and be available for examination, not just described in tabloid articles. Without verifiable physical proof, stories like Carlssin's remain entertaining fiction rather than genuine mysteries worthy of serious investigation.